Sometimes fights, just like movies, don't really end, and they leave us with a profound sense of incompletion. Maybe this video can bring you a feeling of conclusion. As you may know, this is the second part of Jorge Masvidal, the Master of Violence. If you haven't seen it yet, the link is in the description. We've already analyzed the reasons why Masvidal vs Diaz was so one-sided, but so far nothing proves that a rematch wouldn't be different, or even that Jorge would have won the first meeting for sure. Nate Diaz is an incredible and unique fighter. His heart, his conditioning, and his determination can't ever be questioned. That being said, Nate's chances of winning at UFC 244 when the doctor came in to examine his cut were slim to none, and a rematch would represent a serious health risk for him. Look at this. Nate gives his back intentionally, playing possum like he so often does. He's trying to drag Jorge into a jiu-jitsu match by any means possible. But Jorge doesn't bite. He smells the trap and controls Nate's hands to keep a good position. Here, he could easily take the back, but he would risk a reversal and potentially end up in a dangerous spot. Trap avoided. Now let's look at the defining moment in the fight. Nate sees an opportunity in the clinch. He controls both hands and puts his hips on Jorge's hips to change Gamebred's center of gravity and lift him up in the process. Awesome timing and perfect technique. He's finally in a dominant position, and he gets reversed immediately. That sequence really shows how dominant Masvidal was over Diaz, because he could counter Nate's game plan even in the Diaz world. The likelihood of Nate getting a submission or a TKO was extremely small, because Jorge gave him nothing to work with. And let's not forget that Demian Maia had Gamebred's back for a long time and couldn't submit him. Diaz wasn't even close to taking Jorge's back. But a question remains: could Diaz have tired out Masvidal in the 4th and 5th? Well, maybe, but it's incredibly unlikely. Let's look at the 3rd round. Jorge knows Nate will be there until the end. He concentrates on jabs, feints, and also setups. He's ready for 5. He's patient, calculated, focused. Because of his gas tank management, he still has the explosion to hurt someone. And that's what he does. It all starts with the same movement, with a little twist this time. He leans in with the right. Nate anticipates body kicks, overhands, head kicks, right hands. But not what's coming. After the fight, Jorge said he hit Nate with shots he folded other men like lawn chairs with. I believe this was one of those shots. Almost the exact same weapon that separated Darren Till from his senses. Jorge shifts his head on the outside of Nate's jab. He launches his body forward with his right foot. The massive overhand becomes a real threat for Diaz, but it's all a smokescreen. Jorge intentionally overextends on the punch to let his momentum carry him forward. He drags his right foot on the ground to keep all of his body mass moving towards Nate. His whole weight is now advancing. Jorge moves his head from the left to the right while his planted leg is firmly pushing forward. His upper body shifts, rotates. His left hand is launched forward and upward full force, with plenty of weight behind it to back it up. That punch, designed to go through flesh, touches Nate's cheek as Jorge's right foot gently comes back to earth. He hits Nate when he doesn't expect it, on his already almost shut eye. The left hand gets through the skull with no resistance. The head snaps hard. The target is cleared, annihilated. Nate's gone. Wait, what? His chin is out of this world. It really is. This guy just won't lose consciousness. If that shot doesn't baptize Nate, no priest in the world is gonna do the job. But seriously, except his godly toughness, 4 things helped him take that shot like it was a jab. First, he's going for a right hook, and so his body is already rotating in the same direction of the blow. Second, he's leaning backwards. That reduces the impact. Third, his right hand is down, and so he probably saw the punch at the very last moment. And fourth, because of his body position, his chin has a lot of room to turn into, so there's only 1 impact instead of 2. The perfect example to illustrate that concept is the Pettis vs Wonderboy KO. In that fight, Wonderboy's chin position resulted in a double impact to the brain. The punch itself makes Wonderboy's chin accelerate, but his shoulder immediately makes it decelerate. The brain has no chance to recover quickly enough when that happens. If Wonderboy was in the orthodox stance, for example, his chin would be able to rotate into empty space and he would only suffer a single impact. That's what happens to Nate, and that's one of the reasons why he recovers so quickly. But again, Jorge is ready for everything. He knows Nate is a dog, and he doesn't rush the finish when it's not there. His forward momentum carries him into the clinch, and you know what happens there. Energy conservation, enabling more explosions. And Jorge had plenty of ways to set up the explosions. As the fight went on, he used more and more subtle movements to deceive Nate, one of them being a sort of level change feint combined with an early body rotation. This sets up the overhand perfectly, and he caught Nate a couple of times with it. And what does the overhand set up? This. Jorge was always setting new traps for Nate to fall into, and these traps seemed to evolve as the fight went on. It's very likely that new variations were going to be revealed to the world in the 4th and 5th. The rematch doesn't need to be seen. Nate had very little success. He got Jorge in some great positions, but couldn't capitalize. Masvidal's feints and setups caused tons of problems for Diaz, who never really knew what was coming. Jorge has great cardio and conserved his energy very efficiently with his clinch strategy. Him gassing out in the 4th or 5th was very unlikely. Both BMFs were ready and prepared, but Jorge's superior weapons allowed him to counter Nate's game plan easily, even when Nate ended up on top. The only reason Nate was still in the fight after the 3rd round is his exceptional toughness. Almost anybody else would already be at the hospital at that point. As the fight went on, Jorge threw more and more weapons, showed more and more setups, hurting Diaz badly in the 3rd round. It's scary to think that more was coming. Now let me ask you a question. Can you imagine any scenario where a rematch happens and Nate Diaz doesn't get battered and badly damaged? I know I can't. But of course, Diaz doesn't care. On his face, there's always blood. And maybe that same blood will get his revenge.